Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome to Drawing with Mr. Sepulveda. I'm Mr. Sepulveda, and in today's episode, I'm going to do the 4-style challenge. It's where you take one piece of art, divide it into 4 quadrants, and do 4 different styles as you color, design. And so I chose to do Wednesday Addams from the Addams family, right? I started watching the Wednesday series on Netflix. I thought it was really great, and I got inspired to do an art piece. Plus, I also learned from some of my students on how to do this glitch art style, where you end up taking red onto one side of the picture, blue onto the other, split them up with white, and then you get this nice glitch effect. And so that was the first art style I wanted to practice and I wanted to utilize. I'm not doing this traditionally. I really wanted it to come out really perfect, and so I chose to work on this digitally. And so this right here is my glitch art style. Hopefully that looks pretty cool to y'all. I'm moving it into the drip style, which with the drip style, you're ultimately just trying to make it look like it's melting, almost like a popsicle. And so what I decided to do digitally was I was going to color in all my pieces, right? Try to put little swirls here and there so that it looked like it was melting at certain points. I try to make sure that the face looked like it was melting. The hair definitely had to be a big piece that needed a little bit of that drip effect. And then obviously, the entire border going around the collar, going around the shoulders. I wanted there to be some drip-looking motions occurring in all these different areas, right? And then the last piece to sell that it's a drip effect is grabbing some white and going around some of the outlines. Now, when I do my marker art, and I take a white gel or jelly roll pen, right? I end up putting little dots and lines all over the place. And so I wanted to mimic that for this drip effect. I didn't see too many people do it like this, but this is the way that I prefer to do it. And so I think it came out pretty cool because you just use random amounts of dots and thicker areas and longer lines versus shorter lines. So that's my glitch and my drip. The only thing that I did forget to do was kind of make sure that I put in some shading. I felt like it needed some shading, so I went with like just a little shade darker underneath some of the areas where some of these lines overlap. So I wanted to make sure that under some of the drip areas on the interior had some shading to them, and even on the edges towards the bottom, just to make it look like it pops out a little bit more three-dimensional. And then obviously I wanted to make sure that the hair looked like, this goop was coming right down the hairline, right off of it, okay? So there's the glitch, there's the drip, and then we're going to move into an anime cell shading, which I kind of took liberties with, right? Because anime could be openly interpreted depending on how you see it. And so I wanted to go with like some traditional eyes. I went with nostrils here. I definitely go more my style when it comes to ears. Definitely on the hairpiece, I had an idea for it. I don't think I executed it the way that I wanted it, but I kind of I feel like the little strands of hair that come down the ear, I feel like I could have just tucked the hair back behind her head or behind the ear instead of put that little swirl there. I think that's the only thing I don't like about this side of it. But I had a lot of fun with just putting in some of the line work into this piece, right? Seeing her nose shapes, things like that, putting extra lines here and there. But I think I had more fun rendering it when it came time to do some of the shading aspects. So for instance, right here inside of the hair, I'm going to start putting in some line work for the shading, right? So working digitally kind of helps out a lot because I can take like a darker blue or a darker purple and then kind of lower the opacity to kind of create that shadow looking effect that you'll see momentarily. But I wanted to do something different with the hair, and so these were the lines I was talking about so that it shows some movement. And so you can say, oh, okay, cool. So her hair really is braid. It's not just this weird, lumpy shape, right? And so right about here, I believe, is where I lower the opacity so it looks like an actual shadow so that I can kind of push some of these off. I decided to make a second shadow layer just so I could have varying differences because sometimes you'll have really deep shadows and you'll have really light shadows just like you do in real life. So I wanted to incorporate that into this anime-styled cell shading piece. Even though I know with cell shading you normally get like one shadow, but I felt like that was pretty good just to do it that way. In addition to that, I decided like I was going to take like a light purplish color and make this my highlight. I felt like she either has like blues or purples in her hair. Generally, right? And so I wanted to make sure that those highlights stuck. That's me just kind of fixing the top layer and then finishing off with some highlights in the eyes, okay? Digital painting is my last one, and I'm not going to lie, I really had a lot of fun with this, and I was really scared to do it because it's something I've never done before. And so I kind of used my sketch to kind of create a more, or at least in my mind, more realistic looking piece. Like I was trying to drop down the strands of hair. I made the ear smaller than like I would for my anime style. I was trying to find out where the eyebrow was, what the lips would look like when they were completed, things like that. And I kept my sketch layer where it was and put down kind of like a masking layer to kind of create like the basic mid-tone of what I believed her skin was going to look like. I tried to figure out where the shadows were, where the highlights were, and then I used like a blending brush to kind of mix and match. And you always hear trust the process, and I'm like looking at this, and it wasn't great, but I'm definitely gonna have to say I agree with it now. Just trust the process. It's gonna look like a mess. It's gonna look sloppy for the time being, but the results are gonna speak for themselves, I believe, when you know it's done, when you feel like it's done. And so I'm just kind of shading in, brushing out, blending through some of this interior skin stuff, trying to find the right color for the lips, and trying to figure out how that's going to look, because realism is definitely not a specialty of mine, and I'm pretty sure you guys know that I'm more on the cartoonier side, maybe a little bit on the anime side, but I had a blast trying to figure out how digital painting works here. I thought I could use like a pencil, and I thought I could blend that in. I was using a whole bunch of different texture brushes that I hadn't used before. But yeah, and I felt like I was overworking the skin too much, so I was like, let me just go into the hair so I can kind of give myself a break. And so I kind of have this hairbrush thing that I got from the Jazza Ultimate Brush Pack, right? Which I enjoy using. I use it a lot. And I'm using some blue lines, some crayons, or some chalky pencils. I can't remember which one I use, just to kind of find out the motion of the hair, because again, I feel like she either has like some purples or some blues in her hair with that darkness, and I feel like other artists have done the exact same thing when they draw her. I wanted to make this one stand out a little bit, so I kind of had her hair swooping off to the side, and I try to draw in some strands of hair that were looping out, and I wanted to make sure that the hair in the braids kind of mimicked a little bit of what the braids on the anime side did. But this time around, I actually did try to curl the hair back, but over the ear, because sometimes you see the girls with like the hair over their ears kind of pushing to the back, and so I was kind of messing around with some blending and some brushes in the hair there. I did the similar things to that hair that you just saw there for the eyebrows, and of course I'm still going to mess around a little bit with the eyes. I wasn't sure if I was going to go back into it with a heavy black, but I ultimately felt like for me and my style, I really need the black outline to help me like really find these things, right? And so I end up going over some of these parts with my black ink pen. And I think ultimately that was the best call for this. You'll see it here around the ear. I was trying to go with like a skin tone color, but it wasn't working for me. So I just like muddied it up a little bit. And then I'll come back to it in a moment. You'll see the eyelashes here, because I always forget eyelashes. And I think just kind of using the black for the nose, black around the cheek, using the black to fix the ear makes it stand out more. I don't know what you guys believe. I'm not really a big digital painter, but I had a lot of fun with this. Even trying to do like a subtle interior ear, I thought I did a really great job there. I think I nailed it. I think I could have put some more highlights in. I think that's one thing I would change up. But yeah, I think this was such a fun piece, and I really hope you guys enjoyed this process, or watching the process and hearing the commentary of it. If you really want to see the 1 minute shorts, right? Well, I've got those on my channel, so you guys can go ahead and take a look at those. But ultimately, this is the finished product. I'm really satisfied. I'm really happy with the way it turned out, even with like those loose hair strands. Tell me what you guys think down below. Next week, I'm going to be doing human body systems as superheroes, taking my students' artwork and redrawing it with a story. So I hope you guys enjoy that next week. I'll see you all next Tuesday. You guys have a good one. Bye-bye.